Florida House Speaker Chris Sprowls just turned 37 years old. The young leader is one of the most powerful people in the Sunshine State. Earlier this week, I spoke with the speaker about the bill to crack down on rioters and protecting the state capitol. But we began with some of the issues facing Florida in getting the COVID vaccine out across the state. The number of COVID cases in the state of Florida continue to rise, and there are thousands of people still waiting to get vaccinated, including the elderly. So how would you grade the state's distribution system so far?
Yeah. Well, it's not for me to give a grade. What I would say to you is that I think the state is working as hard as it can to get this. And what I like to commend the locals, the Department of Health across the state who are working around the clock to try to distribute this vaccine. It's very difficult, and they're acting on really a moment's notice. They're never, they're not getting a lot of lead time from the federal government about how many vaccines we're getting. So, but the goal here is to, is to vaccinate as many people as possible who want it. I believe now we've hit our 1 millionth vaccine for seniors. So Johnson & Johnson has got out their vaccine or is getting out their vaccine. So we're hoping there's a lot more to come here in the very near future.
There has been a back and forth between Governor DeSantis and the White House regarding the vaccine. The governor saying that we desperately need more doses of the vaccine. The White House responded that we've only used 50% of the doses that we received. So who's right on this one?
Look, I've seen what you've seen, but I think that the governor is right in saying that we prioritize the right people without the help of the federal government, which is our senior population, to make sure they're getting what they need. They're the most vulnerable among us. So those vaccines need to be concentrated among them. And I think that that's been the goal. And I think if you look at the numbers from the other states and vaccinations, I believe of the populous states, Florida is leading the way in making sure that we're getting that vaccines out.
So when the new doses of the vaccine arrive here in the state of Florida, will the system be in place to distribute the vaccine as quickly and efficiently as possible?
Yes, it will. And I think that's what you're seeing through the communities. And I think that every week that goes by, this thing that they've never had to do before, they're getting better at, they're refining, they're kind of working out the kinks in the system. And we're hoping that that's going to get as smooth as possible. As you saw, the House tried to help a week or two ago as we started to roll out a vaccine fraud bill. There were some scammers who were trying to disrupt that process by setting up fake accounts and fake websites and charging seniors, making them think they had to pay to get their vaccine. Just absolutely terrible conduct. So we rolled out a bill to crack down on that, to make sure people realize that if they do that kind of thing and try to defraud our senior, they are going to go to prison.
The governor was at a public supermarket this past week touting that they too will begin vaccinating. Do you think that they could do a better job than the county health departments?
I think variety is important. I think that some people are going to want to go to a clinical setting. Some people are going to be very comfortable going to Publix because they're going to be going there to shop and do go there to shop. So I think the more options we have, whether that's in a hospital, a Department of Health, or a Publix or a pharmacy, is great for Florida consumers.
I want to switch gears to the riots at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. There is legislation, anti-riot legislation here in the state of Florida, which has received a lot of criticism, saying that it violates a protester's right to free speech. Do you believe that perhaps after the incident in Washington, D.C., that will get more support?
I sure hope so. And I want to speak directly to those criticisms of people who say this violates free speech. You as a journalist, myself as an elected official, we love the Constitution and the First Amendment. Throwing a brick through a window is not protected by the First Amendment. Burning a building isn't protected by the First Amendment. Going into the Capitol and assaulting and battering a Capitol Hill police officer, as you saw in Washington, D.C., isn't protected by the First Amendment. So what I would tell the viewers at home is that what this bill does is takes criminal conduct, people who are committing a crime, and make sure that when it's in the context of a riot where things can spiral out of control, as we saw in places like Portland, as we saw in Washington, D.C. several weeks ago, that the message on behalf of the Florida communities and our law enforcement community is very, very simple. And that is, we will maintain order. We will make sure that we take those people to jail. We will not allow them to disrupt our businesses, our neighborhoods, or our political process.
There was also concern that there could be violence at state capitals across the country. Although that did not materialize in Tallahassee, there were multiple agencies of law enforcement there present to secure the state capitol. What needs to be done moving forward to secure the state capitol in the state of Florida?
Well, I think it was, we had those threats that were out there that were circulating on social media. You never know how seriously those are going to be. So obviously we take those things very, very seriously. I commend the governor for his swift action, for the dozens of law enforcement agencies. I think we had 700 police officers at the Capitol complex. So they were just a great service to us. Luckily, we didn't have any disruptions at all. I think we are prepared to protect the Capitol complex. Myself, the governor, the Senate president, have been in regular contact with the director of FDLE, Capitol Police, and our various security agencies to make sure that, whether it's during committee weeks or the legislative session, that all of our members and all of our guests to the Capitol are safe while they're doing the business of government.
What do you believe is the most important action Florida should take to protect its citizens from crime, and also how to handle police reform concerns?
Yeah, well, look, we have to empower our police officers to do their job. We have to make sure that while there's safeguards in place to make sure that people are being protected, that police officers get a very clear message from their elected leaders that the most important function of government is protecting our people and protecting our communities. And if we are unable to do that, then the whole experiment of government has failed. And we can't do that. And our first line of defense and making sure that happens are our police officers who are on the front line. So they need to know that they have our support. And then we have to make sure that the public has supported and realizes that the process has great integrity and transparency.
What do you see as the legislature's priorities to be tackled as soon as possible?
Well, look, we've already started rolling those out. You saw a business liability bill on COVID, making sure that your local hardware store, doesn't get a frivolous lawsuit about COVID. So we rolled out our COVID liability bill, which is the most aggressive protections for your typical businesses, your retailers, the businesses, with their supermarkets, the places you go every day, to make sure that they're not, sitting around worrying that there's going to be a string of frivolous lawsuits that end up putting them out of business as they begin to back and open their doors and recover from being closed during some parts of the pandemic. So that was wildly important. And Jackie, as you know, being from South Florida, in my neck of the woods in Tampa Bay, we had a lot of people out of work, still do. We have a lot of people who are looking maybe whose jobs are not going to come back, who need to be in a different place. That means workforce education is going to be wildly important for our state, to make sure that we're doing rapid credentialing, making sure that people get qualified for a job that's going to put food on their table and plan for their family's future. And then as we look to our K-12 students as the school year gets back, we need to tackle our biggest challenges. Here in the Florida House, I believe one of the biggest challenges we have is that we have 43% of students and times who are not reading at grade level. I said this during my speech a few weeks ago, but if we kept up with current trends, and we're doing really well as a state compared to the rest of the nation, but if we kept with current trends, it would be 230 years before every Florida student was reading on grade level. That's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable outcome for us, which is why this week we've rolled out the New Worlds Reading Initiative to make sure that we're going to make it a priority in our state in K-5 to make sure that our children know how to read, that they get excited about reading, because we believe that if a child can read, that it opens up new worlds and new possibilities, and that they can do anything in their life.
That is really exciting. What has been the response so far?
Well, I think the response has been great as we roll out the New Worlds Initiative to make sure that families know how important this is. One of the things to get kids excited, if you remember, Jackie, growing up, I remember, if you ever got a piece of mail as a kid, you were super excited. It had your name on it. That's the first thing that we're going to do is get children excited. They're going to receive a book at home. It's going to be the first time in the state of Florida that we've had a statewide delivery of books to students, struggling readers in our school districts. Going to get a book in the mail that's for them, that they can keep, that can be part of their home library to get them excited about reading. But we also realize that without parents and families at home to support our kids, to read to them, hopefully at least 20 minutes a night, that's a challenge. So part of our New Worlds Reading Initiative talks to parents, not just kids, making sure they're getting text messages and resources and local book boot camps at their local libraries or their YMCAs to teach them the tools and the skills to help teach their child to learn to read.
Something off topic I wanted to ask, because there are some that are pushing to put recreational marijuana on the ballot. Do you think that will happen, and what are your thoughts on that?
I can't speak it to whether it will happen through the citizen initiative process. It's not going to be something I think you're going to see come through the legislature, but surely those are things that happen every year through citizen initiative. It's not something I support. I don't think recreational marijuana is going to be good for our state. I don't think that as you look across other states who've done it, like Colorado, and you look at some of the challenges they have, I don't think they're the kind of problems that we want here in Florida.
Well, you mentioned you're from the Tampa Bay area, so we have to talk about the Super Bowl. What's your take on Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going home to play in the Super Bowl?
Well, listen, I'm as a Tampa Bay fan, growing up as a Bucs fan, I couldn't be more excited to do it with with a quarterback who is literally the greatest of all time. Is super excited. I think the governor probably said it best in his tweet when he said, in politics, if you want a friend, get a dog. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, get the goat. And that's what the Tampa Bay Bucs did.
Speaker Sprowls, thank you so much for joining us once again on Impact.